It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
One of the things that I'm most proud of most recently is my ambassadorship with Are You OK? You've all heard of Are You OK Day. Everyone knows what it is, and people ask the question all the time, are you okay? Following the tragic loss of my nephew late last year on November 6, I reached out to a couple of organisations that I think do incredibly good work, valuable work in the mental health space. Are You OK was one of those organisations. And since then, I've been able to participate in advisory board work and be an ambassador for what I think is a wonderful, wonderful organisation. Well, this week, this Thursday, the 12th of September, Are You OK are holding their National Day of Action ahead of Mental Health Awareness Month next month. Joining me to talk about this whole Are You OK thing, how it applies to us as adults, how it applies to our kids, whether we should be asking them if they're okay and whether they should be asking their friends if they're okay, is Hannah Brown. Dr. Hannah Brown is the campaign manager for education and young people at Are You OK? In her role, Hannah leads strategy and campaign execution to drive national awareness and engagement with Are You OK? It all sounds so fancy, doesn't it? In schools, universities and TAFEs, through meeting young people where they're at, Hannah strives to provide young people with the knowledge, the skills and the confidence to have Are You OK conversations and decrease the stigma around mental health. Hannah's PhD came from the University of Newcastle. She's worked in academia, research and teaching at that university. And Hannah, where does this conversation find you today?
I am working from home in Newcastle. So again, apologies if you can hear my dogs barking away in the background, but working from home life.
And there they are, right on cue. Well done. Hannah,
cue.
I used to live in Newcastle. I spent a little bit of time as a radio announcer at NXFM. And I just love Newcastle. What an absolutely fabulous spot. Okay, let's dive into this. What does Are You OK do?
So Are You OK is a charity with a mission to get everyone having more conversations to check in with each other to see how they're doing. So it's all about what we can do to help our friends, our classmates and our family to get through tough times. We want to provide Australians with the skills and confidence to check in on and support each other.
Hannah, when you say that, one of the things that I hear all the time when Are You OK comes up, as broad and as bold as the mission is, people consistently say, yeah, but Are You OK Day is one day a year. Surely we're supposed to be asking Are You OK more often than that. How does Are You OK as an organisation respond to this criticism? Because I'm sure you've heard it at least once.
I have. I've heard it many times. In fact, when I started in this role about a year ago, I had multiple family members ask, so what do you do the rest of the year? Once Are You OK Day is over, what do you do the rest of the year? Do you just kind of sit there and wait until next September?
Just hope everyone's okay. Just hope that they're all right.
Just hope. No, but we do work all throughout the year. And it's a valid conversation because we're encouraging people to have these conversations. And our theme for this year is actually Ask Are You OK Any Day. So we're encouraging people, you don't have to wait until the 12th of September to ask someone. You can ask them whenever, any day. And that's what we want to be doing. We want to be providing people with the skills and the confidence to have these conversations whenever they come up in life, because, we all have struggles and we all go through our ups and downs. So yeah, any day can really be the day to have an Are You OK conversation.
Hannah, one of the other regular criticisms that I hear when it comes to Are You OK Day or Are You OK just as a concept is that quite often we'll see somebody, they don't look like they're doing all right. We can quite clearly see that they're not. And when we say, hey, you okay? There's no response. Or they'll say, no, I'm fine. I'm having a bit of a rough day, but I'm fine. How do we help people to have better Are You OK conversations when so often we are pushed away and told, no, everything's all right?
It's such a good question, and it's one that I've been asked when we've been out on the road during our conversation convoys. And this will happen because this might be the first time that someone has asked this person if they're okay, and they might be a little bit defensive or a little bit taken aback that someone's actually noticed and asked. So what I encourage people to do is to, as hard as it is to not let this be a barrier, to not let it be a barrier. Because if you ask someone, I've noticed you're a little bit quieter than usual, or, you're turning up to school later, is everything okay? And they do say, yeah, I'm fine. They at least know that you're there to support them. So, they might not feel like talking to you today, but maybe next week they might say, oh, actually, how you asked me last week, I'm actually not okay. Because they know that you're there to support them, you notice the signs and they can come to you. So that's one kind of way I look at it. But also if they say, yeah, I'm fine, I don't want to talk about it, you can also ask if there's someone else who they would feel comfortable talking to. So that person might not be you, and, try not to get offended by that. But you can say, okay, I completely understand you don't want to chat with me right now. Is there someone else I can get who you might want to have a chat with? Maybe a sibling, or maybe a different friend.
I've had that conversation before, Hannah. Literally, yeah. I've said to somebody, "Is everything all right?" And they're like, "Oh, no, I'm fine." I'm like, "Well, yeah. I know you well enough to know that you're not actually 100% normal fine. If you don't want to talk to me, that's fine. Have you got someone that you can chat with, though? Literally just saying, have you got someone to chat with if things aren't good? That seems to just let people relax and go, no, it's all good. I'm having a rough day. Or they might say, actually, yeah, maybe I should.
Actually, exactly. And to the first point, it just really reiterates that, you're someone that they can turn to. If they decide, a few days later that they are ready to open up, they know that you're a friend and that you'll support them.
I'm speaking with Dr. Hannah Brown from Are You OK? In just a sec, we're going to talk about whether kids should be asking one another if they're okay, especially since they're not therapists, and what they should be looking out for. It's the Happy Families podcast. Dr. Hannah Brown from Are You OK? Joins me on the Happy Families podcast today. Hannah, we've been speaking about where Are You OK? Has come from, how we're supposed to be asking this question all the time, and what we can do when somebody is actually not okay, or if they're not telling us that they're not okay, but we can see that they're not okay. Okay, you know what I'm saying? I thought that was so funny. Thanks for no one can see you smile, but they can hear you laugh. That's all that matters. All right, very good. I know this is kind of my domain expertise, but I'd really love to know from an Are You OK? Organizational perspective, what advice do you give to parents when they're dealing with a child who doesn't seem to be okay? Do you sit down with your child and say, hey, are you okay? You sit down and say, hey, I've noticed you don't seem to be okay. How does that conversation unfold from a parent's perspective?
For different people, we have these conversations in different ways depending on our relationship to them. So, a parent talking to a child will look a little bit different to a child talking to another child. But yeah, definitely sit down with them. Make sure that you do pick your moments, so you're not rushing out the door to go to work, or you're not trying to get them on the bus. You've picked a moment where you both have time, you can both sit together. You can use the notice ask model. So this is where you say, look, I've noticed, and then a change in behavior, whether it's notice you've been a bit quiet lately, or I noticed you haven't been playing with your friends. Is everything okay? What's been happening? We say that the 4 steps are actually called ALEC, so ALEC, and they stand for ask, listen, encourage, action, and check in. So we've just done the first step of asking, and you don't have to say the exact words of "Are you okay?" Because that is quite a closed off question. But asking in your way, especially a parent talking to a child, they know their child better than anyone. So asking in a way that really works for them. So it might be, as I said, the notice ask model. What's been happening at school lately? What's been happening with your friends? And then just giving the child a chance to talk to you. So that's obviously the listen step. And as I said, picking a time where you have the time to actually talk and listen, and you're not being distracted by your phone or TV or anything like that. But also encouraging parents that it might seem like they might have to have the solution as a parent, but oftentimes kids just want to talk and they just want to be listened to. So not having the stress of, oh my gosh, my kid's going through this, what can I do to help them? Just giving them that space. And then that goes into the 3rd step, which is E, so encourage action. And again, this will change depending on the situation, depending on what's going on. But it might be working with your child to say, what do you think would help in this situation? Whether it's having a problem with a friend, or what do you think we could do? So working with your child to really come up with some ideas of how they can work through their issues. And then that takes us to C, so the final step of check-in. And this is so it might be a couple of days later or a week after this initial conversation, just checking in with your child. Hey, how are things going since we had that conversation? it just shows that it's not just a one-off conversation, but you're there for the long haul. You're there to support them, asking if there's anything that you can do to help them.
ALEC, ask, listen, encourage action, and check in. Okay, let's just talk about kids for a sec. Should children be asking each other if they're okay? And the main reason I ask this is because most children are not going to be equipped with the skills that they need to help somebody in any meaningful way if they're not okay. Having said that, many adults are not equipped with that either, and we do encourage adults to do that. Where does Are You OK stand on kids asking their friends if they're okay?
Yeah, this is a great question. And working in the education space, it's a question I get asked quite frequently. But at Are You OK, we say that, it's all about learning how to be a kind and respectful friend or classmate or teammate. And that's an important life skill. And it's important that they are learning it early. And it's not up to kids to fix a friend's problem. As I said before, you don't have to fix someone's problem.
Yep.
They just have to listen and show their support. But they can notice, if a friend is struggling, making the time to listen and encouraging them to speak to a trusted adult if they do need more support. And sometimes we find ourselves being the ones asking, are you okay? Whereas other times we find ourselves in need of being asked. So by teaching our children to ask, are you okay? And to look out for their friends, we're helping them build the skills for strong and trusting relationships throughout their life.
Hannah, really appreciate the conversation. I think there's so much value here. There will be some people who are listening who are honestly not okay. If that is the case, where would Are You OK recommend they reach out for help?
There's some really great support services in Australia. So there's Kids Helpline, and this is 24/7. So you can go to the Kids Helpline website or give them a call on 1800 55 1800. There's also Parent Line. So there's a different Parent Line service in each state or territory. So you can actually visit Kids Helpline to find the Parent Line in your area. There's also Lifeline 13 11 14. I always encourage people to have the Lifeline number in their phone. You just never know when you or someone you love might need that number. They also have a really great text service as well. So if you don't feel like calling, you can send them a text. And then there's also 13 Yarn. So there's quite a few really great support services ready.
Dr. Hannah Brown joins me from Newcastle. She is the campaign manager for education and young people at Are You OK? Hannah, some really important and useful information ahead of Thursday's National Day of Action for Are You OK? Thank you so much for joining me on the Happy Families podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We will link to as many resources as we can, reasonably do so at least, in the show notes so that you can have a conversation with your children, loved ones, about them being okay for Thursday's National Day of Action, Are You OK Day. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. More information about making your family happier is available at happyfamilies.com.au.